Welcome to a Wonder Junkie podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Anderson.
Nobody knows what's going on. Nobody knows. Nobody has the faintest idea. The best guesses are lies. You may be sure of it.
All right. Well, thank you for joining me today.
Oh, thank you. Nice to be here.
Absolutely. I've been following your work online and I've looked at your blog for quite some time. Your book is fantastic. And then I started to listen to you on some podcasts recently just to get prepared for today's conversation. And you've been in this field of trying to help people with cancer for quite some time. Your book was out in 2012. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. It has been. I'm mostly on the science part of what is the origin of cancer. Only more recently have we started to team up with clinicians to try to implement this in the clinic. So my focus has been convincing the field that it's a mitochondrial metabolic problem and not a genetic problem. So the theory under which the disorder is viewed will determine the clinical strategy that you use to manage the disease. So if the world continues to persist in thinking that it's a genetic disease, we're never going to drop the death rate. So I've been targeting the foundational basis of what cancer is, and then I let my clinical colleagues follow the practice on patients. So that's the plan that I have, because I'm not trained or qualified to treat people with cancer, but I have friends that can do this based on the new understanding of what it is, but I can't do that. So I have to team up with others that can do that.
Yeah. When did you start to discover this paradigm shift in understanding cancer as a metabolic disease and not as a genetic issue?
Probably around the year 2000, so 25 years ago. I mean, I had been studying cancer, but never looking at it like what's the origin of it. I mean, we look at cancerous tissues and we see all kinds of abnormalities. And, what does it mean? And I was studying it from the point of glycobiology, and I really wasn't. I was using cancer as a tool to study glycolipid and glycobiology perturbations. We would see certain lipids, glycolipids, that were abundant in cancer, and then we would try to figure out how that happened. But none of this was related to how cancer arose or had any linked treatment in a clinic. It was just what we call basic research. It wasn't until we started to recognize that calorie restriction could have a profound effect on the growth of cancer, because we had a parallel study with epilepsy, and we had been developing ketogenic epilepsy diets and calorie restriction and metabolic therapy for epileptic seizures. And we were studying abnormal vascularization in cancer cells at the same time. But then when we started to put the mouse bearing the tumors on these calorie restricted ketogenic diets, they hammered the vascularization, something fierce. And at that time, the world thought that cancer was driven by abnormal vascularization. So they were making various drugs, the ones they still use today, like Avastin and some of these other drugs that target the abnormal vasculature in cancer. And they're a bust. I have no clue why they continue to use those toxic, expensive drugs that don't work. But yet they do. And I think it's all revenue generation driven. It has nothing to do with patient outcome. But we were looking at those same things, but we were seeing much greater therapeutic efficacy targeting lowering blood sugar and elevating ketones. None of those anti-angiogenic vascularization drugs are nearly as powerful. So I said, what is everybody doing wasting their time looking at those things? And then I linked into Otto Warburg, who said, cancer was a metabolic problem, dysfunctional mitochondria. And I, to be honest with you, I'm seeing the same thing. So why is everybody in the world thinking it's a genetic disease? I'm seeing what Warburg said. And then we started to realize how they threw Warburg under the bus, why they took this brilliant German scientist who was closer to cancer knowledge than anyone on the planet. And they threw him under the bus, and they ran off like lemmings over the cliff, chasing genes. Even to this day, they're all locked into this dogmatic mindset. So what we've done over the last 25 years is find out why they thought Warburg was wrong, and where he was in fact misinterpreting some things. Basically, he was right. He just had the readouts a little wrong. So we went back and figured out why he made mistakes, and then we showed where the information wasn't available at that time for him to put the entire puzzle together. And now we have done that. And it's unambiguous that cancer is a mitochondrial metabolic disease with the gene mutations, all downstream epiphenomena. Precision medicine and all this kind of these hot button terms you hear, all based on the somatic mutation theory, which has now been overturned and debunked. And yet the field, the pharmaceutical companies, the academic institutions are so locked into this failed system that we have 1,700 people a day dying, 618,000 people a year dying, 70 an hour, because they're still locked into this absurd, wrong theory. It's not a genetic disease. Once they come to know that, we're going to see massive improvement in overall survival and quality of life and overall survival. So that's what my fight is. I know it works in the clinic. They won't do it and won't touch it with a 10-foot pole. I mean, here and there, we get this one person, that one person showing they're living 10 years. They should have been dead in 9 months. They won't allow the clinical trials to be done the way we want them done, the way we know how to do it. We've written a big treatment protocol with my colleagues, my clinician friends. So we know how to do this. We know how to drop the death rate. We know how to manage cancer. The problem is the field is so locked into this dogmatic ideology, they can't get out of their own way. And consequently, we have to sacrifice all these poor folks.
And do you, after being in this field for so long and noticing all the pushback and the incentivization structure being in the centralized model constructed the way that it is, you're talking about ideology and dogma. Is it constructed in a way that the well-intended people are just caught up in it and because of the incentivization structure? Or what do you think the real reason is when it comes to cancer industry being tied to food industries? And there's a lot of interesting ties here. It's a really weird knot, you know?
Yeah, well, I think all of what you said. I think there's no one thing. It's the whole package of what you just mentioned. I mean, we're essentially ignored because, God forbid, if you focus your attention and open the box to what we're saying, I mean, you're going to have hell to pay from everybody. So the best thing to do is just ignore it. Perhaps it'll go away. Well, it ain't going away, and it's coming at you like a steamroller. And people are starting to wake up to the fact they don't want to be poisoned and irradiated and surgically mutilated the way we're doing this. It's not something that people are all excited about. I think when you get the diagnosis of cancer, man, you feel like the Grim Reaper is now one of your neighbors. I mean, it's just like, we don't have to have that. We don't have to have that. And we know how to manage this disorder in a relatively non-toxic way. The patient themselves have to shoulder a lot of the success of the problem rather than just sitting there like some mannequin and being brutalized. I mean, it's a transformational process. It's a paradigm shift, no different than the Copernican revolution. It's absolutely more important and more profound than that, because there wasn't 1,700 people a day dying whether you thought the sun or the earth was the center of the solar system. But having locked into this gene absurdity, you are now allowing these poor folks to die because you're not focusing on the really important issues. And that's a crime. That's a tragedy of unbelievable proportions.
Yeah, I'd love to get into what you've discovered and how practical it is. It just requires responsibility of the individual. And it also requires a lot of courage, because if somebody like myself gets diagnosed with cancer and I go to the average Mayo Clinic or wherever I go, you're going to get a lot of pushback and people are going to ridicule you and call you some sort of quack when you start to discover this decentralized form of thinking, which is what you're doing. You're getting your own funding. You're not the mainstream narrative. And so if you go to your family members or your typical doctor, they're all going to tell you that you're going the wrong way. So it's really interesting, right?
Yeah, well, I say you're going the wrong way. Well, how about their track record? I mean, you got 1,700 people a day dying. If they knew what was going on, we wouldn't have that massive death, suffering, unbelievable. So, what are you telling me? You're targeting the very fuels that are driving the dysregulated growth. We have clearly shown they can't grow without the sugar glucose or the amino acid glutamine, and they can't transition over to fatty acids and ketone bodies. I mean, you transition the whole body away from the fuels driving the dysregulated growth, you get dead cancer cells, and the rest of your cells started getting healthier and healthier. And you're telling me that's quackery? And you're telling me that we're going to irradiate and poison some guy because that's the right thing to do? I mean, if anything is quackery, that stuff is medieval. It's not working for the majority. Yeah, they're okay. We have a lot of cancer survivors. There's no question about millions who have survived radiation and poisonous chemicals. But many of these folks pay a serious price for that. They have all kinds of bodily damage and hormonal and bone density issues, neuropsychiatric problems, financial problems. I mean, they have all these problems that's being collateral damage from medieval therapies. We're telling you that the mitochondrial metabolic therapies are based on what the nature of the disease actually is. We have shown Warburg was mostly correct. Okay, so we've now polished up what he did and put the whole train back on the tracks. And now the field doesn't want to know that the train is back on the tracks because what they're doing is so lucrative and so profitable for the industries that what are we going to do now if we're not going to do the stuff that we're doing? How do we do? Well, you better learn quick what we know or get the hell out of the way because people want to live. And you guys are standing in the way of this. So this is what you need to know. And we have the data. We're publishing these data in top peer-reviewed scientific journals. And some of these papers are receiving an incredible attention on the part of the lay public. And you're right. When you go into the clinic at Mayo Clinic, MD Anderson, we never heard of this. Well, get your head out of your butt, start reading the literature, and then you'll come to know what the hell we're talking about. So this is what we have. We have a lot of firewalls that say, it can't be this. Why? Because you were never trained in medical school to know what the hell we're talking about. And the answer is yes. And if it were important, we would have been told in medical school. And that's one of the great tragedies. I'm talking to all my clinician friends. They never knew anything about this in medical school. They go through oncology training to know how not to poison you to death when you're giving all this toxic poison to people. How you have smoke come out of your ears when you're radiating some guy's brain tumor. I mean, this is the kind of stuff they're being trained to do. How not to harm the person any more than harming them with the toxic things you're using. I mean, this is nuts. I mean, once people realize what we've been doing to ourselves in the attempt to help you, people are going to get really upset. So people better learn real quick that we can manage cancer. It should not be a frightening disease. We know what to do. We know how to do it for the most part. We don't never say the term cure. We don't know if you can be cured using metabolic therapy. All we know is that you can live for a longer period of time with a higher quality of life. And I consider that tremendous success. If someone at your age gets cancer and it never recurs and you die at 98 years old from a heart attack, then you were cured from cancer. How would we know? But right now, people are doing a hell of a lot better using metabolic therapy. And we also continue to use some parts of standards of care. We can use very low doses of poisonous chemicals. They seem to work a hell of a lot better with minimal toxicity when the patient is in nutritional ketosis. Same with radiation. Immunotherapies that everybody's banging the doors down saying it's wonderful. It's based on the somatic mutation theory. Those treatments can be done if the tumor is shrunken down and there's a few cells left. You might come in with a low dose immunotherapy. So we have all of the tools necessary to manage cancer effectively. We're just not using it right. We're not knowing the whole problem and how to use all of the tools that we currently have. So I'm very optimistic about the future of cancer. It's just that it takes time for the field to come to know this.
Yeah, it's so hard. You could hammer on the incentivization structure and the compartmentalization component and how doctors are just trying to keep their head above water by consuming the information to get through medical school. And then by the time they get out and they're in the field, they don't have time to go and read all of these studies. They're just trying to keep up with the next patient. And then I would like to get into talking about mitochondria and have you describe a little bit about what you know about mitochondrial health and how interesting they are. And then maybe talk about, like, I had a friend who was 72 when he got diagnosed with amyloidosis, a rare blood cancer. And I was helping him out and taking him to the Mayo Clinic. And it was really frustrating for me because his dietary person at the Mayo Clinic was telling me to take him to In-N-Out Burger and give him as many milkshakes and sugar and calories, right? And I'm like, this is the leading expert in dietary function at the Mayo Clinic. And I was thinking he'd be better off on a ketogenic, fasted, maybe some sort of intermittent fasting. But
Yeah.
it wasn't going to be something I could get him or his family or his doctors on board with. So we had to watch him go through this process of chemo and
Yeah.
sugar. It was unbelievable.
No,
So,
it's too bad. Well, we have a lot of folks that think they think they're doing well, but they lack knowledge, and it's not their fault. These people are smart people.
yeah.
It's just that they've been given training that has no relevance and potentially very harmful for their patients. So you're right. How do you correct the system? And we're in the process of looking at many ways to correct the system. I work with Greg Glassman and Emily Coomer Kaplan. We're gonna start MetFix concepts. This is based on the platform of CrossFit because Glassman started the CrossFit organization. So we can set up health boxes where we train people to know their body, to know the different combinations of treatments that they can use to effectively manage cancer, um, and monitor it using apps and cell phones. And we have the glucose ketone index calculator that we have developed with my physician and scientific colleagues. Um, Though that's a quantitative measure to know what zone you're in for killing cancer cells or avoiding chronic diseases. I mean, we'll be able to manage all of these chronic diseases. Cancer is simply one of the many chronic diseases, a very lethal one that puts the fear of God into people. But you have diabetes, obesity, you have cardiovascular. All of these are different branches of the same problem, which is a mitochondrial problem. Ultimately, the mitochondria is the organelle in the cell. You have, we have organs in your body like the liver, kidneys, spleen, intestines, and these kinds of things. But inside the cell, you have organelles. You have the nucleus, and you have the mitochondria, and then you have lysosomes and Golgi. You have different components inside the cell, and the mitochondrion, which was second class citizen to the nucleus, I guess you could say. When you look at a cell, the first thing you see is a big nucleus, and the DNA is in the nucleus for the most part. And so everybody's for more than a century have been focusing on the nucleus and the DNA and the gene mutations and all this kind of stuff, which is itself is very interesting, and inborn errors of metabolism for sure, developmental sequelae and all this kind of stuff. And mitochondria is more or less, this is the organelle that gives us the energy so everybody can do what they need to do. But it's really the nucleus that controls everything. But we have completely flipped that over, we and others, of course. It turns out that nucleus seems to be a responder to the energy and how the energy comes out of the mitochondria. For until we developed electron microscopy, it was very hard to really see mitochondria. They were like kind of a thread-like organelle that was actually a living organelle inside the cell. They moved around, they fused and separated with each other. They were a very dynamic organelle. They weren't sitting there. And we then began to realize over time that organelle is really calling the shots for the whole cell. It tells the cell when to grow. It tells the cell when not to stop growing. It gives the energy so that the nuclear enzymes and signaling can take place. So it's really controlling what the nucleus does. It controls the cell cycle. It controls the differentiated state. It controls the quiescent state, all due to these signaling properties inside this dynamic organelle. And when that organelle becomes corrupted from abuse, chronic disruption of energy metabolism, it falls back on these ancient pathways that were abundant before oxygen came into the atmosphere 2.5 billion years ago. So what we're seeing is these cancer cells are simply using energy the way all of our cells did 2.5 billion years ago. And as long as you had those fuels to drive this pathway, this fermentation energy, these damn things grow out of control. So you pull the plug on their fermentable fuels, and all of a sudden they start dropping out like crazy without toxicity. So this is the beauty of it. It's just incredible how we can kill these cancer cells. We have made it cancer out to be some incorrigible monster of massive complexity that even the greatest minds in artificial intelligence have been beaten down by the complexity of this disease. And the idea is we've been off on a wrong theory. And when you have the wrong theory, you're never going to fully understand the problem. But once you realize that it's just simply a disorder of energy metabolism, and the organelle that is supposed to control this is corrupted, leading to the cell to go into a proliferation state the way it did all these millions of billions of years ago, then you know how to kill it. And it's not as complicated as it was once thought. That is probably what I just told you is probably one of the greatest obstacles. I don't believe it. How could you say this terrible disease is not as complicated as, well, that's also the dogmatic mindset. Oh, we have 100 different types of cancers. Every one of them is driven by a different mechanism and blah, blah, blah. That's no, we look at them all. They're all very similar. They can't live without a fermentation metabolism driven by glucose and glutamate. How complicated is that? Not that complicated. So that's a hard pill to swallow. If you're getting hundreds of millions of dollars from the federal government, pharmaceutical industries, all these different academic centers, and you're telling me I can manage this disease on the cheap? And the answer is yes.
And a lot of it I've heard you speak to, basically the cause of it in the front end, the way to prevent it would be to start to get back to the Paleolithic era and just going back to the basics of what we used to have for all of human history available at our fingertips and what we didn't have. The only thing I heard you miss out on, I'd love to get into that piece, but the only part that I've been catching on to in the last couple of years is circadian rhythms and mitochondrial health, and hearing Glenn Jeffrey and other folks talk about the story about light, sunlight, and how the indoor environment is so new to us. And now we have all these LED lights and blue lit screens and its effect on mitochondrial health. So like getting out in natural sunlight and trying to get your early morning sun and all that and getting your circadian rhythm back in order, that's a huge factor for mitochondrial health as well, right?
Yeah. Well, when we looked at the mitochondria, when we corrupt the ability of that organelle to generate energy, it's generally not one thing. It's like what you said about the circadian rhythms. It's bad food, poorly nutritional food, lack of exercise, emotional stress, poor sleep. You chronically damage the ability of the organelle to function through a constellation of assaults, any one of which or in combination can lead to chronic disruption of the energy efficiency of that organelle, gradually causing the cell to shift to a fermentation metabolism and dysregulated cell growth. So one of the ways that you prevent cancer is you got to keep your mitochondria healthy. Yes, get out in the morning, get the sunlight, do the exercise, reduce stress, try to avoid chronic disruption, inflammatory behaviors chronically. And that will protect you. It's very, very hard to get cancer if your diet and lifestyle is traditional. There's a study that we always talk about in the monkey study from South America, where they took all these macaques, these kind of monkeys, and rubbed chemical carcinogen on their arm to see if they could get a melanoma of some sort chronically. And they did it for years and didn't work, nothing, no cancer. And then they started to feed it to the damn monkeys and inject it into the monkeys. And this was 20-methylclanthrin, a known carcinogen. One monkey in 10 years got some sort of a minor dysregulated tumor of some sort. And you know what the conclusion was? The monkey is not a good model for cancer. But, incredible. Domestic dogs are loaded with cancer. It's the number one killer. And we're giving the dogs the same crap of food that where these dog food companies are just putting all kinds of crap in these dog foods. Dogs are getting obese. They have no exercise, and they develop all the same kinds of cancers. Those monkeys were basically eating the same food they evolved to eat. They were just being given a lot of chemical treatment, but they weren't really changing their diet and lifestyle and being exposed to the chemical. Then you would have gotten a very different outcome, in my opinion. But yeah, we can see domesticated animals, monkeys, dogs, are very similar to us and the origin of their cancer is mitochondrial damage, leading to a whole variety. The dogs have diabetes. The dogs have obesity. The dogs have cancer. They're dying faster than they normally would. So, and we're the same. We're obese. We have cancer, cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes. We have all the same problems. It's all from the same origin, diet and lifestyle. We're deviated from our Paleolithic ancestry so sharply that we put ourselves at risk. Like I tell everybody, our technology evolved so much faster than our biology. We are still Paleolithic man over hundreds of thousands of years in this kind of an existence. And then within the last 150 years, we're thrown into a completely different kind of an environment where we're putting ourselves at risk for all these chronic diseases, cancer being the big dog.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense because I had a dog not long ago, a couple of years ago, die of cancer. And I remember going to the vet and the same problem of the paradigm that they're trained in. My veterinarian was trained to give me a high processed food diet for the dog. And when I told her I was going to get the dog on a just high protein, just basically raw meat diet, she said, no way, that's terrible for dogs. But every dog that I encounter that's on the raw food diet is so healthy, so lean. And it's just the same story, but it's in dogs and not humans. So
Yeah, well, that happened with there was a collaboration between the veterinary societies of America and the dog food people. There was some sort of a liaison. I have a friend, Jeff Broderick from Long Island, New York, Huntington. He told me about it. He's a vet. He said, "Oh yeah, the vet societies would be supported by dog food societies, dog food companies." To create this, and let's train the veterinarians to think that eating raw meat is bad for your dog. I mean, they all came from the wolf. The wolf eats raw meat. You should never feed your dog grains and this kind of crap. If they eat grains, they're going to get it from the stomach of a rabbit or something that they kill in the quantities that are all natural. But yeah, I mean, I had to deal with these veterinarians, and I feel bad for them because they're being indoctrinated incorrectly in the damn veterinary schools. They said your dog will get salmonella poisoning. Well, what the hell? You're not going to be giving your dog rotten meat, for Christ's sake. You wash it off and you clean it any more than we would want to do it, right? But they can eat all natural foods, natural meats. They don't have to be given the kibbles and bits and all these toxic things that these dog companies give you. Some of them had to be pulled off the shelves because they found euthanol in the dog foods, which is the drug they use to euthanize dogs and cats. They were grinding up the carcasses from the dogs and cats and putting it back into the dog food, for crying out loud. I mean, this is real ethical behavior, right? Real ethical behavior on them. I mean, they don't care. Dogs are eating. Dogs can eat raw meat as long as it's clean and healthy, and they do a hell of a lot better. That's their natural diet. It's not kibbles and bits. That's an aberration. Just any more than we're eating the crap that we're eating in the stores with the high fructose corn syrup and all the processed foods. I have a Twinkie here. Look at this Twinkie. I always like to show everybody my Twinkie. You see this thing here? What is that? You see that? Okay. See, it's Twinkies, right? Can you see the Twinkie box?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Wow. Everybody says I eat Twinkies. These are 12-year-old Twinkies. Look at them. They look almost like they're brand new. Right? I mean, can you imagine some damn thing looking like it's fresh for 12 years? This is artificial. This is killing us. These are the kinds of things that are putting us at risk for chronic. The people eat this kind of crazy stuff. And they deep fry it and put powdered sugar on top of it. I mean, when you want to kill people, eat Twinkies.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
unbelievable. And I've even seen recently, obviously, it's very politicized and it's unfortunate, but the stuff that they're putting inside, like a Gatorade now versus 20 years ago, the
yeah,
amount
yeah.
of ingredients, it's unbelievable that they're allowed to jam in all these weird dyes and these cancer causing agents. And you start to think, is it really an incentivization structure to drive cancer and sickness so that they can make money on the tail end? Is it that nefarious? I mean, how deep does it go? You know?
Well, I don't know. Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I think the people that are working on making Twinkies and doing all this stuff, they probably never think about it. They know they're getting a good job, doing this stuff, packaging this kind of stuff. I don't think they really think carefully that saying that the foods I'm making are going to kill the next generation of Americans, or put them at serious health risks. Um, uh, I just think it's very very, as they always say, it's very hard to get somebody to understand what you're saying when their salary depends on them not understanding it. So, I don't think these are bad people. They just lack knowledge, and they have a good job. So the momentum to do this, and they know you take a bite of that Twinkie, you're not going to drop dead
Yeah.
tomorrow as the result of it, and it's cheap food, and it's what they call comfort food, and we all eat. I don't eat those Twinkies, but I certainly eat a pretzel every now and then, and I probably, but I don't eat a lot of it. I just eat it occasionally, and I think that's okay. Nobody's here to outlaw certain foods. It's just that you should know the harm that they're doing to your body, and that's why we developed the glucose ketone index calculator, and we're linking that up now to zones of health. When you have a low glucose ketone ratio in the blood, you're generally like Paleolithic man, and when you're in the red zone, you're generally like modern man. So, so, the person themselves can know what zone they would like to be in: the high risk zone, the moderate risk zone, the low risk zone, or the super healthy zone. And you can all do that with a drop of blood on the end of your finger, and you can get the ratio of glucose to ketone using a keto mojo meter. You can buy them on Amazon, and then people from themselves can now know where they stand. And if you're really good and you've kept a low GKI, and you say, "Wow, I feel really good. I'm very good. Okay, eat the damn Twinkie and see what it does to your GKI. And if it shoots it up into the red zone, then you'll know maybe you don't want to eat the Twinkie." So, but everybody will have that opportunity. We're working on this whole dynamic right now. We have all kinds of guys that are working on the apps. Very smart people now getting involved with this general transformation of health. Never telling anybody what they can and cannot eat. Let the person know themselves when they look at the meter what they can and cannot eat, and it's up to
Yeah.
them whether they want to put themselves at risk or not.
Yeah, I'm curious. Yeah, the less government, the better, as far as
Yeah,
individual freedom and taking personal responsibility, in my opinion. But
yeah.
once somebody switches into ketosis, is there a lot of risk when you get into that state of metabolism versus now you go out and you have a beer? Whereas
Hmm.
before you were able to process it and you were used to it. And when you start to switch up your microbiome and your body's used to running on a certain fuel type, and then you go to ketosis, the damage or the repercussion might be exponentially worse once you start to switch these fuel sources, or is that not true?
No, I don't think that's true.
Okay.
I think your body will be the judge of that. And that's something that we're really going to have to come to know. Um, I mean, I love beer. Don't get me wrong. But I don't drink it as much as I would like to drink it. Put it that way. Um, but beer has a lot of good stuff in there. But I would have to look at my GKI and then say, okay, let me have this. Let me have two or three beers and see what it does to my GKI. And we tested the red wine, dry red wine didn't. We had one of my former students who graduated. He went on a 3-day water only fast and then drank a cup of red Cabernet wine. It didn't do much to his GKI at all. So we haven't gone through the wine, whiskeys, and beers to see what that would do. And again, if it shoots your GKI up, how long does it stay up? Because you can come right back down again, and it might be just a temporary shift out of a healthy zone, And people can know, well, I'm going to have a couple of beers. It's going to throw me out of the zone for maybe a day, but the next day I'll be back into the zone. And then you have exercise that works together with the G. That pulls the glucose right out of your bloodstream because your muscles take it right up. Cardiovascular, weightlifting, all these different things. You can get yourself back into these zones relatively quickly. The problem is you don't have a quantitative meter looking at the meter and saying, I can get back in 24 hours. I'd be back in my healthy zone. That gives you an opportunity to enjoy life. You go to a birthday party, some guy's got a big chocolate cake. You can't be fear stricken that you're going to drop dead if you have a bite of the cake. You just know it's going to throw you into a red zone for 3 hours, and then it's going to gradually go back to the green zone. Okay, yeah. I can deal with that. Therefore, and some people may transition in and out of these zones much easier than other people. The cancer patient, we know that they have to stay in that green zone, the low glucose ketone index, to kill the cancer cells. And then once we are in that zone, then we come in with the parasite medications and these other repurposed drugs to really hammer these tumor cells out of existence without toxicity, which is really interesting. And how long? People say, do I have to stay in this thing for the rest of my natural life? I said, I don't know. That's your choice. You look, if you can't see cancer anymore with MRI, PET scan, or whatever you're doing, and you feel good and you're in, people make adjustments, but it's their will. It's once they have the knowledge, it's up to them what they want to do and how to do it. But they need to have a tool to allow them to do that. And they should work with a knowledgeable physician that will look at their records and guide them in how to get in and out of these zones. So all this is the future. What I'm telling you right now is the future. It's coming like a steamroller through us. It's coming here. It's in the verge of being developed, all of what I'm telling you. It's just that it's not mainstream yet.
Right. Yeah, it's a paradigm shift and it takes a little time, but even if it was 20 years, that's still a short period of time when you look at how many deaths. And I'd love to hear
in 20 years, I'll be part of the planet in all likelihood. So I like to see it happen a little bit faster than that.
Yeah, I heard you mentioning some of the cancer studies and the way that they portray them as if things are going well because they use statistics like smoking and things like that, or they don't include some of the other elements. Can you go into some of that?
Well, that's what the National Cancer Institute shows us. The American Cancer Society. One of their great uses for the society is they log the dead. How many people are dying from all the different cancers and how wonderful we're doing. Oh, we're doing so wonderful. Because they said, we have dropped cancer death rates by 33%. But that 33% was the result of the anti-smoking campaign. So they're saying that if we didn't stop smoking, we would have 33% more dead cancer patients today than we were expected to have. So these are all expected deaths, not real deaths. So, but if you still look at the curve, it's still going up year in and year out. Every year we get more dead bodies. People say, but what about relative to the rest of the population, per 100,000 people? When Nixon declared war on the cancer back in 1971, they call it the war on cancer. When we're in a war, we count dead bodies. We don't say, we lost 40 soldiers per 100,000 population. You don't say things like that. You talk about how many dead bodies you have laying on the battlefield. You take a body count. It's not good to have a large number of dead people every day on the battlefield. We have not dropped the number of dead people year in and year out. The number of dead people goes up every single year for decades and decades. We're not winning this war on cancer. You want to win the war on cancer, you got to see fewer dead people on the battlefield. That's the way you know you're winning. You're winning because more people are alive and fewer dead bodies are on the battlefield. Then it tells you this is the way the AIDS epidemic work. If we remember, AIDS was a lethal disease. It was a death sentence. When you got AIDS back in the late 70s, early 80s, you were a dead person, basically, almost everybody. And then they built the cocktail, the protease cocktail, and dropped the death rate dramatically and very overnight. Reagan said that. I'm not going to run through individual trials like this protein, that one. Put them together in a cocktail and see what happens. It worked. Okay, we can do the same thing with the cancer. We're not doing it. uh, for a variety of reasons. I'm not saying we could drop the death rate as dramatically as the AIDS, but we can definitely drop that death rate, the dead bodies on the field, very, very significantly. Keep people alive a lot longer, but we're not doing that. Why? Because they think it's a genetic disease. So we keep pounding out these absurd precision medicine, clinical trials on drugs that don't work. More and more, they're being killed by the drugs that are being given. These immunotherapies have just as much chance of killing you as curing you. I mean, this is nuts. But it'll change. It has to change. People don't want to continue on the path. It's not working.
Yeah, I think a great wake up call was the pandemic when people started to see through the corruption of things like ivermectin and the conversations around vitamin D and all of the crazy stuff that was happening with doctors that were speaking out and virologists. And the common sense was lost. And if you were to speak against the hive or the herd,
Yeah.
people were being fired and losing their jobs and livelihoods were being completely ruined. And I think people were not ignorant to that. There's a lot of people now that are aware of how the corruption seems to work. Maybe they don't know specifically where and how it's all tied together, but at least they're questioning authority. And I think that's a good starting point.
Yeah, I think so. It's an important inflection for sure, and we have to just see how it works out. But we also don't want quackery and absurd things thrown into the system as well, because once you get a Wild West system where you turn against the established institutions and throw them under the bus, and then you have all these nut cases coming in. Oh, take that supplement. This is going to cure. Can't take that. And these people have no scientific credibility. They're just out there to make money on the unfortunate situation of somebody else. Those people should be herded away. But
Yeah.
this is part of who we are as a people. There's always some scammer out there
Yeah.
that wants to do that. And when you hear these I'm telling you, I listen to some of these YouTube guys. Oh, they're really convincing. It's unbelievable. You listen to them, you say, "Wow, I got to try that. That guy really knows what." And then you look him up, and he's a scam artist. He has never published any scientific papers, never peer reviewed anything. Who the hell is this guy?
Yeah.
Challenge him. But people just listen to him because what we call them is pitchmen. They can
Yeah.
pitch. They can, pitch sand to Arabs and snow to Eskimos. For Christ's sake, they're really good at doing what they do, but they have no credibility in associated. So we have to be cautious about falling into this kind of a trap. We cannot challenge the credibility of major institutions and throw them all out because there's good people in those institutions. They just have to be their eyes opened, and we have to work very, very slowly and carefully to make sure that what we are proposing is established by clinical trials and outcomes that are favorable to everyone, the patient, the physician, and the industry, whether or not they make money on it. The important issue is whether or not the patient emerges from the treatment better than when they started, with a higher quality of life and an overall improved survival. And that's the evidence. And then we can figure out how to make profits and do this. The people don't mind paying a lot of money for something that works. They'll do anything. If you're going to pay $150,000, $200,000, and you say, well, gee, this is a lot of money. I'm going to be in trouble, but I'll live. Have a better quality of life, and I'll live much longer. I think they will do that. But if you pay $250,000 and you're dead in 6 months, I mean, you should get a refund on that. And they pass the cost on to the family members. This is horrific. It's called financial toxicity. We're blowing out the finances of so many people living right on the edge. They can't afford this kind of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
This is immoral. What we call this is immorality of the society doing this to other people.
Yeah, the system is built on some bad incentives, really. It's driving everything, and that seems to be the root of it. But what you're basically saying is that what you've discovered is to get a low calorie, maybe more fasting, to implement fasting and to get back to more of a Paleolithic lifestyle, right? Get rid of processed foods if you can. And this starts to slow down the possibility for these cancers to thrive.
Yeah, but you have to know how to do it in a way that's not going to be too uncomfortable. Because already you're fear stricken by the diagnosis, and now somebody says don't eat for a week or 2 weeks. I mean, this doesn't sound like something you really want to be comforted. So we're learning slowly how to transition the body from the toxic situation we're in more back to a Paleolithic style. But it has to be done gradually over time. And we're talking about 2-3 weeks. We usually go from when my colleagues are doing this. We wrote a big treatment protocol up for glioblastoma brain cancer, but it can be adapted for all cancers. We try to get the person, look at their blood work and see how many other issues, how many markers are out of balance with respect to metabolic homeostasis, and we try to bring those back into balance, and slowly transitioning away from high carbohydrate diets to more lower carbohydrate diets, and use the glucose ketone index calculator as a tool to see how you're gradually going. And even if you're eating carnivore or plants or Mediterranean or whatever, I mean, when you stop eating carbs, and you're replacing it by salmons or meats or whatever, there is still a resistance on the part of your body. Your body is addicted to that glucose as if it were cocaine or nicotine or something like this. So you do have some resistance. But the resistance is a little bit more tolerable when you're eating food, not starving, but you're eating foods that allow you to have something in your stomach that actually tastes pretty good, as opposed to going cold turkey, which is just going water only fasting before starting. It's brutal, man. Try it. It's not easy. Not easy.
How many
So,
days?
well, you do 3 or 4 days, all of a sudden you're ready to eat your pet, for crying out loud. I mean, you're so goddamn hungry. I mean, you're all of a sudden, every time a TV commercial with any kind of a food, man, you're glued to the TV looking at the hamburger. You have to go gradually, bring your body into this new metabolic state gradually. Then once you're in this metabolic state, now you can come after the tumor cells with hyperbaric oxygen. You can come in with repurposed drugs. Yes, I haven't checked ivermectin yet, but a lot of people say it's doing good. We use embendazole, fenbendazole. These are parasite medications. And then people say, oh, see, cancer is a parasite. No. The parasite and the cancer use a common pathway to get energy. So it was found out those parasite medications kill parasites because they target that pathway. Turns out the cancer cells use the same pathway. So when you hit the cancer cell with the parasite medication, you kill them like they were a parasite. But that does not mean the cancer is a parasite. They just share a common pathway. So, and these drugs are not very toxic at all. I mean, they're nothing like chemotherapy and this kind of stuff. So there's a lot of options that we have to move the patient from a state of unhealth to a state of health. And in the meantime, you see the diabetes starts to go away. Oftentimes, many people with cancer have type 2 diabetes. They have other comorbidities, hypertension, high blood pressure. They've got all kinds of other things. And all of those other things start to also come back online in a healthy zone while the cancer cells are being hammered. And you have certain levels of flexibility, like the big paper that just came out about a month ago out of my colleagues in Greece, where they took a bunch of GBM, glioblastoma, deadly brain cancer patient, and put them on a calorie-restricted Mediterranean diet, which was salmon, sardines, olive oil, avocado, and a few things like this. I mean, these guys were living as long as 3 years or longer by just doing that. And the people who didn't want to do that, only one guy survived that long. All the others were dead before that. So clearly, we know this stuff works. And boy, once we polish it up, it's going to be dynamic. And it's not, but you got to do it without causing so much stress on the person. You want that person to feel good about it, not like, oh, I'm caged in this room and I can't eat anything. No. We're working on all angles for this. And, carnivores seem to do better than vegans. It's hard to get down into the GKI with just eating plants, but it can be done. It's not, you can't do it. It's just a little bit more challenging, and we're learning. You have to have, for different cultures, different religions, different ages, all of these come into play when you're trying to move the patient from one metabolic state to another. And all of this, we're learning more and more as we do it. And it's going to be really exciting once we have it all together.
Yeah. And this theory of just getting back to this Paleolithic man, the piece that I would imagine would work really well too is considering this light diet, this thing where we really were outside for all of human history. And now we've been inside for only 100 years with fake lighting. And I actually myself have really been missing this piece of the story too. I've been on the paleo rant for 10, 15 years now, but now it makes a lot of sense to be outside more and to try to get as much natural light as you can in your eyes, because the mitochondria are so affected by it. So it just seems like such an obvious thing to start with for people, is to start
Yeah,
getting
and
outside more.
absolutely. And the other thing too is emotional stress. People sit in traffic, as well as I, some of the big cities, Boston here. Are you kidding me? New York, Los Angeles, Chicago. People spending hours and hours a day sitting in cars in traffic, getting all no light, emotionally upset. If you're maybe they listen to books on tape or something to reduce stress. But the idea is you're not getting any major exercise sitting in a car in traffic. Many times getting pissed off by some guy cutting you off or doing something. And you're not getting as much light as you could, and exercise. All of these come together. But, that's our society. What are we going to do? I mean, we got millions of people working in these cities, and what are you going to do? And the Paleolithic man spent all of his time trying to kill deer and buffalo and elephants and stuff. I mean, he wasn't thinking about his 401k, you know. Right? I mean, if he had anything to eat, he was really lucky to find something. And take a lot
Yeah.
of, how hard it is to skin a buffalo. Oh my God. And chopping it all up and digging the marrow out of some elephant's femur. I mean, this is not easy stuff, you know. But that's who we were. Let's go back to Paleolithic time. Listen, nobody wants to go back and kill deer and skin them and all that. But we have to know that we have to make the transition to be as close as possible with the light, the exercise, the reduced stress, the replacing highly processed foods with more natural foods. And then we have so many folks in society living in these food deserts. They have nothing except the highly processed foods, putting them at risk. And generally, it's the lower socioeconomic people in the society that have to suffer like this. I mean, this is nuts too. We're doing it to our own people, making these problems. But once you know what to do and how to do it, then you can solve certain of the problems and make things better. But right now, most people are clueless on this and how to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And me being a first responder, we have a higher rate of cancer. And I think one of the things that I've even seen labeled as a carcinogen is sleep deprivation. And
Yeah,
that's one of our industry issues, is because
yeah,
we work these 24-hour shifts. And
yeah.
I really try to harp on guys not to work overtime and to try to get their circadian health in alignment. And then when you combine it with metabolic health and think about fasting and think about all these other components of maybe getting a more ketogenic or Paleolithic diet, those are all things that could probably make someone in my industry more robust and able to deal with something that we're being exposed to, like smoke and
Oh,
carcinogens on a higher level, right?
yeah, absolutely. When I was in New Haven, Connecticut, at Yale University, some of our neighbors were firefighters, and they would come back from these fires, and their nose would be all black from inhaling all the soot and crap that was in these places, and choking. This is extremely unhealthy environment. Extremely unhealthy. There has to be some way to allow these bodies to get back on track, and especially in New Haven at that time. I mean, it was like every other block there was something burning. It was really tremendous stress on the firefighters at that time. But yes, you guys put yourselves at risk, and therefore your career doesn't last as long as some other careers. Because your bodies get so beat to hell from being exposed to the toxins and the stress and all the other things that you just mentioned, put you at risk for shortened lifespans, one or another. So if you work as a fireman for 20 years, you deserve a break. Do something else. Retire from the fire department. Go out and become a farmer. Work in the ground. something to give you plenty of light, plenty of sleep, and
Yeah,
rejuvenate your
that's
body. Your body is an incredibly healthy machine if given the opportunity. The problem, we're not giving our bodies enough opportunity to heal and get healthy again before we throw them back into the stressful event.
yeah,
Chronic problems puts pressure on mitochondria, leading to chronic disease, which could be seen as dementia, cardiovascular disease, cancer, type 2 diabetes, hypertension, high blood pressure, all of these, macular degeneration. All of these are linked in one way or another to mitochondrial health. So the glucose ketone index calculator is designed to keep your mitochondria healthy as best you can to delay or prevent these chronic diseases. And that's what what our future will be.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's really amazing stuff. And you've been writing about it since 2012, which means you've been studying it a lot longer. So it's out there. It's just a matter of getting this paradigm to shift and getting everybody to get away from the dogmatic ideological possession, which is the case for so many things. It just seems like that's the human condition, is to unlearn and to
Yeah,
relearn.
yeah. Well, the thing of it is, as long as we have new tools, and again, people will be their own judge and jury on this whole thing. As long as they know what to do and how to do it, we have to leave it up to them to do that. No one's going to force anybody to maintain a low glucose ketone index by force. You're not going to do it. It has to come from your own willpower. And there are people who will never bend to that. And they'll never be wanting to do it. But that's okay. That's their personal choice
Yeah.
to do that. But as long as we have a tool that allows us to know where we are with respect to our general mitochondrial health, I think there'll be a lot of people that'll be interested, especially when you can get it onto your cell phone and read it in real time. Continuous glucose ketone monitors will be the future. And at any given time, you'll have your calculated GKI looking at you right in the face, and you'll know whether you're a good boy or a bad boy. One of these kinds of things. And then you have to make the decision as to what you want to do.
Yeah. Do you think all this will work for the upcoming increase in cancer that's going to probably be affiliated with this pandemic that we had from the mRNA technology being implemented into our body? And now they're saying SV40. Kevin McKiernan and all these molecular biologists have discovered that there's super cancer causing issues. Have you heard of this?
Yeah,
Kevin
they call
McKiernan?
them turbo cancers or something like this. We don't, our metabolic therapy does not discriminate. We're an equal opportunity cancer killer. They can't grow without the fermentation. I don't care what you want to call them, turbo or whatever. But one of the things that's interesting, people need to keep it in mind. Everybody's running out blaming the vaccine. In some cases, that's true. We haven't really ferreted it out, but we have
Mm-hmm.
direct hard evidence that the virus itself, the COVID virus itself, enters into the cell and damages the mitochondria. So that's the virus itself. Now, whether the vaccine is doing the same thing or working synergistically with the virus, we don't know. And like if you take people who've never had COVID and given them the vaccine, who've never had COVID, do they get cancer and do they get mitochondrial damage? I don't know, but I do know from the work of Doug Wallace and others. These are leaders in the mitochondrial metabolic field. They've been showing that the virus itself can damage mitochondria. So we have to be very careful. We have to be careful how we point fingers until we have a full readout a full readout on this. So we have to just wait for a time to come and then get more and more better information about the virus itself and the various therapies that were given to ameliorate or reduce the risk of whatever the virus was doing. So I know people hate this and hate that, but we got to wait for the research to come out and see what's going on before we start turbo cancers and all these kinds of things. But as I said, if it's cancer, we know how to kill it without toxicity, and once people know how to do that, they don't really care where it came from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the data will keep presenting itself for sure. If you were going to die today, what would you want to share with the world?
If I were to die today, wow, I don't know. If I knew I was going to die, I don't know what. I mean, I don't think two people would be wanting to say much. How's the 401k doing? Who's going to carry the casket? Who's going to start the burning fire? I don't know. I mean, it's really something I really don't know. But we started the ball rolling here, and it's not going to stop rolling because we're on the right path, and what we have is the science to support what we've done. So I think when you have Mother Nature, you have peeled back a part of Mother Nature and exposed certain things that were mysterious. Now you can work in a logical way to improve everything. And I have absolutely no question about it. I'm probably not going to be around to see the ramifications of this, but man, it is so locked into evolutionary biology and biochemistry. as we know it today, that it's going to happen, because I've seen it already. I've seen the power of what we're talking about. It's just that the rest of society and the industries have not yet, are either willing or understand what we're talking about. They will come, and they're all going to be wanting to be a stampede to get it. And everybody's going to be their own unique person. Be very excited to see. They'll have GKI parties. Let's have a big who can have a big party and who can get the lowest GKI at this party, or even the highest GKI, and see how fast. I mean, it's going to be really exciting, because you're going to be seeing it in real time on your cell phone, and you can track it over time, share it with your caregivers and your health providers and this kind of thing. So you'll know where you are at all times. It'd be very interesting. Paleolithic man, we were so happy to get out of the Paleolithic. I mean, are you kidding me? Who wants to go back and live in a cave and having to kill those animals, and live as a hunter gatherer? Oh, it sounds great and wonderful until you actually do it. You say, "Man, I'm out of here. Give me a Twinkie, will you?" Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just putting the parts back together again and just reevaluating everything. Because I'm
Yeah.
not, I like, I like a big pizza. I like a beer. I like a hamburger. I'm not going to deprive myself of those things. But if I looking at my GKI and I'm saying that burger ain't the one I want, man, okay, we'll have to find something, another substitute. But that's my choice. Get a lot of exercise, do what you can, make sure the light, yes, get out in the sun, if you
Yeah.
can. I mean, right here in Massachusetts, I mean, we didn't have sun for damn near a week. There we go, drop dead of vitamin D deficiency. You know? So,
No, I appreciate your lightheartedness and your humor with all of this too, because it's not exactly a lighthearted conversation when you start talking about cancer deaths, but you keep it light. And I also love living in modern civilization. I love the local coffee shops and being able to go
yeah,
out and have a good drink once in a while or whatever it is. But it's
yeah.
like, hey, moderation, and do the best thing you can to keep your system robust, and try not to stress out about every little thing in the environment. Part of it's mental stress and your relationship to your environment.
Oh, absolutely, and all that's part of, we're learning about emotional stress and metabolic therapy. So that's a lot of neuropsychiatric problems are the result of of energetic imbalances in the brain.
Hmm.
So we're trying to bring that back on track as well. Dementia, another. 40 or 50% of dementia is as a result of metabolic imbalances. So all of these things are manageable to a large extent once we have the tools and the knowledge, and then things will start to change. And I'm looking forward to seeing those changes myself.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate your time today. I'll make sure I put your website on the show notes. And if there's anything else, I'll make sure that I link people to your work.
Yeah, and I wrote only one book, Cancer as a Metabolic Disease by John Wiley. There are other books that have my name that I wrote. I didn't write those books. That's one of sham artists trying to do this kind of stuff. And
Hmm.
the other thing too is that our research is being driven largely by philanthropy and private foundations. So you'd be surprised the people out there that want to be part of the movement. They want to be part of this change, and they don't really care whether they're going to make money on it, but they want to know that they're participatory in what we know and what we're doing. So when people read my publications on open access, anybody who has access to Google can look my name up and see the papers. And then you go to the acknowledgement section of the paper and you say, who the hell are all these people? Like all these names? Well, these are the guys that are giving us the money to do the research. And
Mm.
I said, and some people say, I don't even care if you put your name in the acknowledgement. I just want to be part of this. And some people say, yeah, I really appreciate it. Thank you. So you see all these names there and you say, whoa, these are the guys that are the philanthropists and the people working in the private foundations. So, and that keeps us going. As long as we have that, man, we're going to break the doors down on this whole thing. Because we got new data coming out all the time, new information to help people, new procedures. It's coming. So I'm excited about it.
That's amazing. Have you had a lot of people attack your character or rip your Wikipedia apart or do anything like that?
Well, there was a group from BBC that said I was providing misinformation, hazardous. Oh yeah, very, very hazardous. Uh, you know, um, Eat a little bit of fat and do exercise. Extremely hazardous to your health. Who are these people? They got no brain cells or anything. I don't know. Imagine somebody saying that. Oh my god. I
Yeah.
want to hazard it. But yeah, but that was the BBC, and they were brutalized by the people. How insane and stupid what they were saying. No, as I said, mostly they ignore us. They ignore us until they can't, and when they can't, it'll probably be too late for them, because the people will already be behind us. And our papers get some of the highest views now. It's unbelievable. When we publish these papers in top scientific journals, I have a media group of people that send this stuff out to the world, and all of a sudden people start reading it. They talk about it, and the word starts to get out. They can evaluate the data. They can look at the information, and they can come to their own conclusions. They want to get into this. They want to get into the movement. They can. They call me. Oh, I want to get involved. I want to do this and do that. And I already have groups of folks that bring these guys in. Okay, everybody has a specific talent that can move the field forward, and we use them, and they get excited because they're all participatory on this ground change. The basic groundwork is being done by these people.
It's amazing. Yeah, there's definitely a huge push right now for getting back to some of the basic fundamentals,
Oh, yeah. Well, that's why you're interviewing me, right? I mean,
Absolutely. No, I love learning and sharing stuff like this. It's important. So,
yeah, well, it'll be exciting.
Absolutely. I appreciate your time today, and I'll be sure to keep you in touch when I finish this editing this thing. So,
oh, great. Well, thank you very much, Ryan. It was a real pleasure to be here today.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the episode. Be sure to subscribe to the show on Spotify, YouTube, and iTunes, and rate the show. I hope you enjoyed the episode.
What we call reality is in fact nothing more than a culturally sanctioned and linguistically reinforced hallucination.